So, without further ado, we begin with our first speaker, Elizabeth Manley. Elizabeth boasts more than 30 years in both amateur and professional figure skating. She competed in 2 Olympic Games, winning the silver medal and becoming the Olympic freestyle champion in 1988. Participated at 6 World Championships and won 3 national titles. Reliving her incredible journey for audiences, Manley gives a behind-the-scenes glimpse into what it takes to make it to the top and speaks with honesty about the importance of mental health and surviving the loss of her parents. Please join me in welcoming Elizabeth Manley. Thank you very much.
I'm so short, sorry. First of all, thank you for the great introduction. I don't know how I could have done 30 years when I'm only 30. Just joking, 30 plus HST, okay. First of all, it's truly an honor for all 3 of us to be here tonight, to be involved in this great event for brain awareness. It's something that many of you, if you're from the Ottawa area, have known about me, that I have been very open and very honest about depression and mental illness, and it is now my passion to work with this. I only have 20 minutes, and I was joking with Dr. Park in the other room that my life story is actually 20 days long. So I'm going to have to try to really sum this up very quickly with you and tell you a little bit about my situation and what happened with me. And the reason, the part that I'd like to explain to you about what I went through is really shows what the stigma of mental illness is. It really shows about how, especially back in our day, Mr. Khan, the 80s, just joking.
It's my turn after
Just how high the stigma was on mental illness back in the 80s when I went through it. And though we still have such a stigma on mental illness, we are at least getting together as we are right now, and we're talking about it for the first time, and it's taken way too long. Just to give you a little bit of an insight, you all know I'm a figure skater, and figure skating was really a passion in my life, and it was something that I really wanted to do. I wanted to wear the pretty dresses, I wanted to wear the pretty makeup and everything, but unfortunately sometimes sport doesn't come with all the pretty stuff. And unfortunately my story did not come with a lot of pretty stuff. My story came from a broken home. It comes from trying to achieve an Olympic dream from really no money, no financial backing, no abilities to be able to become a champion that I wanted to be. And to kind of sum up what happened, when I was 16 years old, I was sent away to skate. I had been taken over by a coach here in Ottawa who took me to that extreme level. In 4 years, he took me from a 10-year-old little girl that moved off a military base in Trenton to Ottawa, and in 4 years he made me a national champion of the country. So he really trained me, and he really made me into the champion I was. A year before that, my first Olympic Games in 1984 in Sarajevo, my coach had to leave me. During that period that my coach left me, my father moved to Europe. All my siblings moved away to play hockey. And it was just my mom and me. And when my coach left me, as a 16-year-old kid, I was completely devastated. First things that came out of my mouth as a child was, did I not win enough? Did I not train hard enough? Did I not skate hard enough? Why is he leaving? And in a flash at that moment, as we were driving down the Queensway here in Ottawa, with tears coming down, not understanding why my coach is leaving me a year before the Olympics, I turned to my mom and I said, is this why Dad left? So I suddenly was a teenager that was expressing these feelings of guilt, blame, and I believe that my own parents' divorce was my fault, was my skating's fault. When you are trained as an athlete, the unfortunate thing about being an athlete is you are trained to stay quiet. You are trained not to express your feelings. You are trained not to express anything you might be going through. If we do, we're considered weak. We are considered not tough. My gym partner at 16 years old right here in Ottawa was Steve Eiserman. You think I'm going to let him know I'm feeling cranky? Makes a lot more money than me. But that was what I was raised in. That's what I did as an athlete. So when my coach left me, I was shipped away to the United States. And in those days, I thought the United States was a really weird, strange country. I thought the United States was 500,000 thousands of miles away. So I panicked when I was being sent away. When I found out it was only in Lake Placid, New York, 3.5 hours away, and I knew I wanted to go to the Olympics, I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And the organization I represented was going to take care of it because my coach had left. There was another coach in Norway who could take my career over. So they took care of it all. My arrival in the United States was walking up to a house that I was going to be billeted in and not really understanding what this house was. And I can now explain to you what this house was. Thank you to A&E Television. But the woman I was about to live with was a hoarder. And when I say a hoarder, she collected everything you can imagine. She had 9 refrigerators in her kitchen. She proceeded to ask me to pick any bedroom I wanted in the house. This was a massive house. 4 bedrooms on the 2nd floor, completely piled to the ceiling. Nothing but a single bed had been cleared away. Couldn't get my equipment in, couldn't get my suitcase in. I was panicking. She sends me up to the next floor. 3 more bedrooms to look at. I go up to the next floor, same scenario, just a little single bed, stuff piled to the ceiling, couldn't even see windows. House was dark. And between all the rooms in the house, she had made 1-foot pathways to walk, so you could get to each room. At that moment, I looked at a staircase that came out of the ceiling. I'm sure we all from your grandparents' house remember those that used to pull down from the ceiling. And I asked the lady, what's up there? And she says, that's the attic. She goes, there's a bedroom up there, feel free to go up and look. So I crawled up this staircase. I asked my mom to go with me. She said, I'm not getting on that. And I went up, and the attic was the only place that this lady hadn't started collecting. So I could get a suitcase up there, I could get my equipment, I could get all my training stuff up there. Came back downstairs, and I looked at my mom very tearfully, and I said, I'll live in the attic. Now, you have to remember in the 80s, there was no cell phones, there was no computers, there was no 925 channels on your television. So literally, I was now about to seclude myself from society completely. I was about to live in an attic in a strange country with a strange woman who collected a lot of things. And my mom drove back to Ottawa. My mom had to drive back to Ottawa. I never have blamed my mom for anything in this aspect, but because she was working 2 jobs to keep me skating. Within 12 hours, I should say, I had unpacked. I had cried more than I could imagine because I was scared. And I was sent to the Olympic Training Center to meet my new coach at 9 a.m. in the morning. At 9 a.m. in the morning, I arrive into the Olympic Training Center and I get all adrenaline. Okay, this is it. Okay, I'm like a kid at Christmas. Everything's about Olympics there. This 6'8", gigantic man in a parka walks up to me and parks himself right in front of me. And he huffs on top of my head. And I look straight up at him and he starts poking me. And I looked at him and he goes, you, Elizabeth Manley? And I went, I'm terrified. This man's huge, bigger than Stefan. He then proceeds to walk around me, and he stops and he goes, me, Emmerich Danza from Austria, mi coach. I'm like, great, he doesn't speak English. He then walks around me again, and he starts poking my bum. Stops and he huffs. Walks around the second time and grabs my bum. And he looks at me and he goes, you're fat, go get changed. That was the introduction to my new coach. For days, I trained. And to sum up a very long story, 4 weeks after being in Lake Placid, I called my mom. And I said, Mom, you know how Emma keeps calling me fat? And she goes, oh, honey, just ignore him. He doesn't speak English. I said, no, Mom, I am fat. She goes, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, I've been gaining a tremendous amount of weight and I'm training 10 hours a day. He even has me skating on a speed skating oval at night. And she goes, well, what are you eating? And I said, that's the thing, I've stopped eating because I'm gaining weight very fast. And she said, okay, I'll come down the weekend and we'll see we'll talk about it. And I said, before you hang up, I said, Mom, I think I'm losing my hair. And she said, I had told her about every night I come home, there's a new cat on my bed. I counted 17 at one point. She says, what do you mean? I said, Mom, I think I'm losing my hair. And she goes, could it be the cats? And I said, no, my hair's falling out. I can grab handfuls, and my bed is full of hair, and the shower's full of hair. My mom drives right down to Lake Placid. When I opened the door, my mom did not see her little girl. My mom fell to her knees and she cried. She said this was not her little girl. I had swelled up, I had lost 3/4 of the hair on my head. I was quiet, I was very, very sad. Grabs me, packs up my stuff, drives me back to Ottawa. I spent 3 weeks here in Ottawa going from specialist to specialist. No one can diagnose me. Nobody knows what's wrong. I've had allergy tests, I've had everything done to me. And I get into a specialist, and in the 3 weeks of going from doctor to doctor to doctor, my hair entirely fell out. I was completely bald, and I had gained another 25 pounds. I gained 40 pounds in water retention. I couldn't get rings on, I couldn't even put my sneakers on. When I got into the specialist, he did a series of tests on me, and that was the day I was diagnosed as clinically depressed and having a nervous breakdown. I still at this point wasn't talking, but I would like to share with you that you can only imagine as a young kid living in an attic of a house and this happening to you, but I was definitely suicidal. I believed that there was no hope for me. Something was wrong with me, this wasn't normal, and I was too scared to talk to anybody. And I want to share with you why I was too scared to talk to anybody, because I was an athlete, I was a tough girl, I was Canada's queen, I was whatever you want to call me in those days, and I was afraid. I was afraid of what people would say. I was given 2 options, drug therapy and talk therapy. Drug therapy scared me. I was drug tested all the time, constantly through my skating. And if I did go back to skating, I was afraid if whatever I was going to take I was going to not pass a drug test. Talk therapy in those days was really, really not available. There wasn't very much of it available. And we had no money. Over the next month, I had people stop calling me. I had the organization ask me not to compete at the national championships because I would embarrass them. I literally was treated like I had leprosy. Everybody turned their back on me. Everybody was afraid to ask what was wrong. All they knew was Elizabeth Manley suffered from mental illness. I got so angry that I showed up at the Nationals to make a point. I knew what I looked like. I looked like the Miley Cyrus in 1980s. And boy, oh boy, nobody wanted to even talk to me. I came down that hallway bald. I looked like SpongeBob SquarePants coming down. And everybody dispersed in other rooms because they were scared of me. They didn't know what to say. But you know who loved me? Was the media. The media, it was a highlights. I said, I was a Miley Cyrus. They just wanted to get the scoop. And all that they could focus in on was my mental illness. Didn't even bring up the word depression, just mental illness. Lost my title, go home, hang my skates up in the garage, and once again, I'm considering why live. My dreams are gone, I have no friends, I have no school. My dad lives in Europe, my brothers are all gone. I've put my poor mom into a poorhouse, and I had a tremendous amount of guilt. And through days of really considering what I was going to do, I was so blessed with somebody from right here at Ottawa University called my house. His name was Dr. Terry Orlick. And he said, I am such an admirer of your daughter for what she has just gone through, what she's going through. I would like to help. And my mom said, I'm sorry, we have no money, we can't do it. He said, just let me talk with her. My mom proceeded to ask me to go in. My words were, no, why would I go in? There's no hope for me. There's no help. No one can help me. My mom, with tears coming down her cheek, begged me to go see him once. When I walked in there, I thought he was a sports psychologist. I'm like, what's a sports psychologist going to do for me? I literally walked in and said, hello, look at me. Like, what are you going to do with me? He says, I'm not going to talk to you as a sports psychologist. I want to talk to you as a therapist. One session turned into 10 sessions, turned into 20 sessions, turned into 25 sessions, turned into months. And suddenly I became a person again. I was amazed at the help that was given to me and the help and the support that was given to me, what it did for me. It made me realize that I wasn't just a robot and an athlete and a skater, that I was a kid, I was a person. And when I started talking, and I was a floodgate of emotions. And I want to share with you all that the interesting part of all the treatments and all the therapy that I went through was 80% of my problem wasn't figure skating at all. It was life, it was me. I had a problem with me. And I started to fall in love with me again. And that turned into passion again to do what I loved, and that was to skate. And I made a commitment to go back and skate, but not to compete. The words Olympics never came up once. Never came up once. And I ended up, was very, very lucky. A couple coaches came in, decided to take me over, and I told them I'm not competing. And for 4 years, we avoided the media. The media sitting right in front of me. It's just for 4 years, we decided that I wasn't going to talk to the media because that's all they wanted to talk about. And I broke down a week before Calgary Olympics. And I had this, at this point, thought people had forgiven me for having a mental illness. It's really sad to feel that. There were people at home in Ottawa, and that were people going to forgive me for falling apart? Was Canada going to forgive me for falling apart? I was going through all these kind of emotions. So I do an interview here in Ottawa. They come over to my house, they take a picture of me with my new little puppy dog on my shoulder, do this nice article, and that was the first time I broke down and let the press in. Next morning, I run to Max Milk, smack my 50 cents down on the counter, I get the paper, I see this adorable picture of me and my puppy Pixie, and I'm so excited, and I run back to the house and I open up the paper, and I'm even talking to the dog, look how cute you look, and then I freeze, and I read the headline. Under the name of the newspaper, which we will not say, in big black bold letters, it says, Manley, dogged by inconsistency, will never win a medal. I looked at the title, and I was in shock, and I proceeded to read the whole article, and the whole article talked about me having a mental illness and depression, and I was never going to be good enough or tough enough to ever even think about winning a medal at Olympics. 3 days. I sat on my couch in my pajamas, I ate 20 pints of ice cream, I watched more Young and the Restless than you could ever imagine, and I was shocked and my coach finally comes over and says, it's been 3 days, we gotta leave for Calgary in like 6, and I told him I wasn't going. He looked at me and goes, what do you mean you're not going? And I said, can you explain to me how I'm gonna go out in front of 2 billion viewers and do what I know I can do when 2 billion viewers don't believe I can because I suffer from depression? It's a huge statement. And he said, I get it. I'll leave the decision to you. And he left my house, and I got so angry that night. I got so angry. I was so angry, I'm standing at the door with my suitcase and my skate bag. My mom looks at me and she goes, I know you're not running away because you're waiting for me. And I said, take me back to training. So I went back and trained. And with all the negativity and all the support and everything that happened, and all the people saying, because I suffer from depression, this is what happened. So much more to the story, but it was just a short period of time. But I don't normally bring this out. It sits in my underwear drawer. The reason I don't have this out is because in the Manley family, this is a gold medal. Not because everybody thinks they should have beaten Katarina, but thank you. But it's because I stood out on that ice that night, and I was told right up from the day that I was diagnosed that I had depression to the day I walked in that saddle down in Calgary, I was still being told I wasn't good enough because I suffered from mental illness. And this medal is made up of, you can't do it, you're no good, you're never going to succeed, and you have a mental illness. And to the Manley family, this medal is gold. It's a gold medal in life, because that was the night that I proved, and I hope still today I can prove to people that you can live a very fulfilling life and still suffer from mental illness, depression, whatever it may be. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I still suffer today. I've had a lot of loss in the last 5 years of my life. And I'm not afraid to say that I still go to therapy, because it works. And we need to be talking about this. We need to be aware of our children, of our parents, of our family members, everybody. And you need to be there for them, because the people that supported me and didn't walk out of the room and weren't scared of me were the ones that helped me win this. And I'm just an example that it can happen, and that's why I do what I do today, and that's why I go to all the high schools and I talk to the kids and I tell them, when you think that you could be, there's just no hope, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm a perfect example of it. 4 years to the day, I was bald, fat, living in a hoarder's house in a strange country, wanting to commit suicide. And 4 years to that day, this was being put around my neck. And I want people to know that there's hope. And thank you that we can all sit in a room and talk and listen about this now. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful, compelling story.